All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, you can post them. It's going to be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. All right. So let's see here what we got. So Paul Macy asks, can anyone help me understand the wrist rotation to close the club face? I have been told that any movement of the wrist will lead to inconsistency. I have been watching the tennis racket drill. So we definitely have to move our wrists, right? There's just no, imagine throwing a ball, but just trying to keep your wrist from moving at all, right? That's just not going to be very powerful. We need to, flex and extend our wrist, right? We need to rotate our wrist, right? And then we also need to go up and down with our wrist. So this would be ulnar deviation, radial deviation would be thumbs up. We have wrist extension and then wrist flexion, right? And then we have pronation and supination, right? The rotation of our wrist. We have to be doing those things in the swing. And you're doing that. Really, the golf swing is very much like a throwing motion, because essentially that's what you're doing. You're taking this club and you are throwing it into the back of the ball, right? So when I bring it up to the top of the swing, I'm going to be hinging it up some, right? I'm going to be extending my trail wrist back some, and I'm also going to be rotating my arm some. Because if I didn't do that, if I didn't do any of those things, my swing would just look like this. If I didn't do any of those things. So I have to have some hinging, I have to have some extending back, and I have to have some rolling over the face to get the club up to that position, right? I have to be doing some of that. So the idea that the wrists shouldn't do anything, that's a total falsehood. That is not true at all. If somebody's telling you that, they, just to be blunt about it, they don't understand how the body moves, or they don't understand the golf swing. I'm not trying to be mean about it, but they just don't understand that that's what has to happen in the golf swing. The wrists have to move. If they're saying that they don't move, that there should be no movement, then they don't understand what's going on. So I would not listen to that person when it comes to the golf swing. So like I said, we're going to have some wrist hinge. That's with both wrists, right? We're going to have, and the wrists work together, right? So it's not like this wrist is going to be doing that and this wrist is going to stay there. The wrists work together. So a good way to kind of get the feeling of this is like if you were to take a book, right? If I take a book, right, and I put my hands like this, right? We can get a feel for how the wrists have to work together. So I'm going to hinge up a little bit. It's going to get hinged up a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of this action, right? Where my trail wrist extends back, my lead wrist will bow. And then there's going to be some rolling, right? If I don't roll my wrist, then I'm here. So I have to be more like that, right? So that's to kind of help you to get the feel. If you take a book and you go like that, that can really help you to feel what has to happen with your wrists, right? The same thing. If I go here, go up to the top of the swing, then I come into impact, right? I want to be like this at impact, right? So I'm going to go to the top of the swing, and I go like that at impact, right? So doing that with a book, that can really help you to understand and feel what the wrist angles are, right? The problem is, and why the tennis racket drill is very effective, is that people open the face in the backswing, which everyone opens the face in the backswing, but a lot of times we have trouble getting that face back closed. So what ends up happening is we'll pull the club down, and then we'll stand up out of it to get it shallowed out, and that opens up the face, right? So then we have to flip up at it. Or what we'll do is we'll push our hands out too much. Now that face gets open, right? So what we want to do is we want to shallow out the club. We want to get this club shallow out, but we also want to be getting that club face closed, right? We want to be getting that club face down to this position. So that's what the tennis racket drill basically is, right? Is to help you to be able to do that. All right, let's keep going. So Richard R says, I'm just starting, and I'd like to start by buying a swing speed measurement device. Is PRGR still the recommended product, or is there a better product out there? Garmin G80, Mevo. What are other members here using? So good question. So it's the one I recommend just overall. Now, if you want the best product, right? If you just clearly just want the best product, I would say the GC Quad will probably be the best one, to be honest. That's the one I would probably trust the most, or like a TrackMan or a Flight Scope X3 or something like that. The problem is the best devices cost 10, 15, 20, $25,000, and not everyone has $25,000. So I think the best device out there for measuring your club head speed for the money and ease of use and all things like that is a PRGR. There's lots of things I like about it. So one, it's roughly around $200, give or take. I think sometimes there's sales and stuff. I can actually I'll put a link in the chat where you can pick one up if anybody's interested. Let me find the link. There we go. So here's what I like about it compared to other ones. So you listed the G80. I think that's the Garmin one. I haven't used that one, so I can't comment on the, I haven't tested that, so I can't comment on the, on the accuracy of it or anything like that. I've heard pretty good things. The problem is with it, I believe, if I'm thinking of it, you have to use your phone as the display. I could be wrong about that, and I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't want to use my phone. Let me look up what the Garmin G80 is, so that way I can be on the same page. Let me bear with me here. I'm just trying to see. Oh, of course, the link that I click on isn't. There we go. Garmin Approach G80. Oh, so it is okay, cool. So it is you don't have to use your phone. How does it set up then? So long story short, with the Garmin G80, I've heard some pretty good things about it, but I do not know. I cannot talk. I can't speak to the accuracy of it. But what I will say is that it's $500, and the PRGR is a fraction of that. It's less than half of that. So, yeah, that would be. I'm sure it may be good. Like I said, I've heard good things, but as far as the accuracy, I can't comment on that because I'm not really sure. So that's what I have to say about that. What were some other ones? The Mevo, again, I think the Mevo is a good one. I can comment on that because I have used that. It is accurate. It's it stands up pretty well to the really expensive devices. Very comparable to PRGR. Mevo is also a $500 product, and it's also a product that you have to use your phone with as a display. And personally, I don't like that. For ease of use and for what you need, I think the PRGR, it's a standalone thing. You literally just turn it on and set it behind your golf ball, and you could be hitting golf balls and getting numbers in 5 seconds. Whereas with a Mevo, you got to pair it with your phone. You got to make sure that it's working right. You have to make sure that it's in the mode where it's reading your ball flight. It's just a little bit more complicated. And to me, that's just not what I want. I want something I can just get out and set up. So that's why I'm a big fan of the GC Quad, for an expensive option, because it's big, which isn't the best thing, but it's got a display on it. It's a standalone. You can hook it up to an iPad or computer and stuff like that as well, but it's a standalone product. You literally just set it down, and then it's already reading things. The only thing I don't like about it is to get club data, you have to put the stickers on the club face, and that's a pain in the butt. But other than that, I mean, if it wasn't for that, I would say that's by far my favorite one for ease of use and accuracy of numbers and all that stuff. But it'll still give you ball data. It just won't give you club head speed data if you don't put the dots on there. But PRGR, there's no stickers. You just set it down. Now, obviously, there's less parameters, but for the price, for the accuracy, for the ease of use, there's not a better product out there. So that's why we recommend that. There's definitely other ones out there. But you have to think about what's most important for you and what are you looking for, right? That Garmin G80 thing, it looks like it's also a GPS. Like if you're looking for a GPS and something that reads your club head speed, which I assume it does. I'm not sure what all it does, right? If you're looking for it to do all those things, right, then there's a product that does that. If you're looking for something that just reads your club head speed and you don't need GPS, well, then I wouldn't go with the Garmin because you're just paying extra for something you don't need, right? And I don't know how accurate it is, but I know that the PRGR is accurate, and best case scenario, it's as accurate as a PRGR. So that's kind of what I would be looking at. But yeah, I've owned Garmin stuff in the past, and I think they make good stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's an awesome product. In fact, I'm in the market for a GPS, so I might actually look into it and see see if it would be a good option for myself. All right, let's keep going. So Jim S says, last year I dropped from 15 to 10 handicap. That's awesome. This year my game has stagnated at 10 handicap. What should I focus on to advance to the next level? Distance seems to have increased this year. Also, I just haven't been able to break through to the next handicap level. Let's talk about that a little bit. So first of all, the lower your handicap gets, the harder it is to improve, right? It's much easier to go from a 15 to a 10 than from a 10 to a 5. Even though it's the same amount of strokes in handicap, it's much more difficult to do that because the low-hanging fruit is you're losing some of that low-hanging fruit, right? And you're also, there's less things that you can do to get a lot better, right? Because you're already you're near a single digit handicap, which means you're much better than average golfer, right? So there's just less things you can do. So keep that in mind. To go from a 15 to a 10, that's awesome. But it's going to be a lot harder to go from a 10 to a 5 than it was to go from a 15 to a 10. Just like it would be, there's a huge difference between a 5 handicap and a scratch golfer. Huge difference, right? And it's very, very difficult to go from a 5 to a scratch. It takes a lot more work to do that. So it just gets harder as you go along to lower the handicap. That being said, as far as what you need to work on, there's really no way for me to know because everyone's a little bit different. So here's the way that I would kind of think about what's going on. Just think about your last several rounds. If you're a 10 handicap, that means that you're probably making a lot of pars and bogeys, and then you have occasional birdie, and then occasional big holes, right? Or maybe you have more big holes. Maybe you're making a lot of doubles and triples, and you have a lot of pars and a few bogeys. So what I'd be looking at is the holes that you do not make par or better, right? What happens on those holes? What's going on? What's happening on those holes that is not allowing you to make a par, right? Is it off the tee, wayward tee shots? Is it because off the tee, you're not hitting it far enough? You mentioned you've increased your distance, but you haven't capitalized on it. So it doesn't sound like that's the issue. But where are you hitting your driver, right? Is it errant tee shots that's causing you to have those bogey worse? Is it poor approach shots, right? You're not hitting enough greens, right? What's going on there? Maybe you are hitting greens, but your proximity to the hole is really far away. So you still need to improve that aspect of it. It could be on the greens. It could be around the greens. Are you having really, are you getting, you're not going to hit every green, right? That would be like a high, basically if you're hitting 12 greens or more, that's like scratch handicap level, right? So obviously, even scratch golfers are missing 4, 5, 6 greens per round on average. So, if you're missing the green, then what's going on with your short game, right? Are you not chipping it in an area that's allowing you to get up and down? Maybe you are chipping it up 5, 6 feet and you're just not making any of those putts because you're a really poor putter. So I wish I could just tell you, oh yeah, you're a 10 handicap. This is exactly what your problems are and exactly what you need to do. But it's very individual by the player. So, but that's what I would look at. I would think about your last several rounds and the holes that you shot bogey or worse. What happened on those? Think through those holes and think, okay, well, I did this on my drive. and then this and this and this. And then you'll start to see, okay, there's a tendency here. Okay, there's a tendency. I'm doing pretty good up to this point, and then boom, this happens, right? And it seems like that's happening more often than not, right? And then from there, that's what you need to work on. If you make that weakness now a strength, then the scores will come down. You just keep doing that for whatever the next thing is. Maybe your handicap gets down to an 8, but you're still making those big holes. You still have to find what is that thing that's causing that to happen. So that's what I would recommend doing. Evaluate what's the major thing, and then work on that specific thing. But like I said, I wish I knew it was specifically for you, but there's just no way for me to know. All right, so Greg says, hey, Q, I've been told my shoulders are too level on my backswing, which I think causes my early extension. Do you have a checkpoint on the top of the backswing and or a drill? Thanks. Yeah, so if we get our shoulders too level as we go up to the top of the swing, that can definitely cause early extension, because that is early extension, because you're essentially extending your hips too far forward. In order to get my hips level, it's very difficult to get your hips level and not extend your hips, right? So typically you're going to be moving your hips forward, and that's going to get your shoulders level. And then from here, you're like this, and then you're either going to just throw down from there, right? Pull down and come down steep. Or what you're going to do is you're going to try to get back down to the ball, and then we come down steep in that way. So either you're going to pull down, or you're going to go like this, and then that steepens the club. So either way, it's going to be difficult not to come down steep from that position. So what I would try to do is get your shoulders a lot steeper at the top of the swing. Easy drill to do would be to take a club, put it on top of your shoulders here, and then try to feel like you're turning to the top. And we have to tilt, right? We need to do this in the backswing. So in the backswing, we are rotating our body. We are extending slightly, right? Because if we didn't extend at all, we would look like this. So we have to extend some. And then we are tilting, excuse me. So we're turning, tilting, and extending in the backswing. That's what we're doing with our body here. So turn, tilt, and then extend. That's what's happening in our backswing, right? So you're not doing enough of this from what it sounds like. So make sure when you're going up to the top that I would imagine that there's a laser that's coming out of this club, and that laser is going to trace a line that's, roughly 6 feet on the other side of the golf ball, right? So if this is my ball, I would imagine that if I'm in my address position here, I would imagine that this is going to trace a line that's roughly 6 feet on the other side of my golf ball. So if I were to extend this out, it'd be roughly about 6 feet on the other side of my golf ball, basically toward the corner of my room there, right? That's where a little bit short of the corner of my room. That's where I'd want to be. And then from there, that would look like this, right? From there, I can move down into a better position. I don't have to move down, right? And I can work my arms into a position so that way I don't have to pull down. I can work my arms out toward the golf ball and get it working around my body, right? So doing some drills where we go like this, right, and turn through, replicate that same feeling with the golf club, check it on video, make sure it looks good, then work toward hitting a golf ball. But yeah, that can definitely be an issue, the level shoulders at the top. All right, so Tom M says, hi, Q, I'm having trouble with consistently shallowing the club. So the mental image I use is to try to get the trail elbow close to my side on the downswing with the trail palm facing upwards. This seems to work most times. I wonder if this is equivalent to shallowing. Yeah, so basically you're talking about your trail elbow getting close to your side. So I assume now we want to be a little bit more specific than that, because I can go like this, right? And that's getting closer to my side. But if I went like this, that's getting closer to my side, but that is not shallowing out the club. That's steepening the club. So what I would try to feel like is more that your trail arm tucks, right? It's going to tuck in. And that's what's referred to as external rotation in your shoulder. So you can think of that as losing an arm wrestling contest. That's external rotation, right? That's what we want to feel as we're coming down. We want to feel that external rotation, right? So yes, that tucking, that getting closer to your side, but we want to make sure that it's working in front, right? If it's working behind, that's going to steepen. If it's working in front, that will shallow out the club. That's external rotation. If it works behind, that's winning the arm wrestling contest. That's internal rotation. That's going to steepen, right? So yes, the bringing the elbow close does shallow out the club if you're doing it with external rotation, right? So make sure that we're doing that, and then facing palm upwards, right? What does that do, right? If my face is palming down, that's a steep club. If my face is palming upwards, that's a shallow club. So yes, both of those things will help you to do that for sure. What it comes down to is if you're someone who's really struggling with shallowing out the club, it's just something you don't know how to do yet. So you got to practice it, right? You think about if you were a musician and you were really struggling playing a song, right? You just got to break it down and go slower and practice more. That's really what it comes down to. So that's what you have to do with the golf swing too. It's no different than learning, changing things in your golf swing is no different than learning a new song for a musician, right? You have to break it down. You have to go slow, and then you have to build up the speed. You got to maybe even exaggerate things and so on and so forth. That's the way you want to look at it, right? So just takes more practice. You're going to get more comfortable with it the more you do it. And then eventually, just like with a musician, you're going to be able to play the song without much thought. Your fingers are just going to do it, right? Because you've trained it so much. So you just need more training, and you'll be in good shape with it. All right, next question here is from Michael C. Says, I've been playing golf for a long time. I'm 74 years old and still hit it a long way. It's awesome. Over 260 yards, 7-iron, 150 plus. I'm having difficulty shallowing the club, so I pull the ball, come over the top, etc. All the bad habits. I shoot anywhere from 80 to 95 based on my drives. Question, how to score shallow the club. Michael, my best advice to you, and the short answer, is really just to work through our 20-minute shallowing fix course. Not sure if you're aware that we have a course that is basically specifically tailored to the issue that you're talking about. So that's what I'd recommend doing is working through that 20-minute shallowing fix. And we'll just talk about that here real briefly. But step number one is we have to get the face closed, right? If we don't have the face closed, we have no incentive to shallow out the club. And that's really a big mistake that a lot of people make. People just go straight to shallowing out the club. But if we have the face open and we shallow out the club, well, I'm just going to hit the ball starting to the right, and it's just going to keep slicing to the right. So I have to get the club face closed to be incentivized to swing this club in and out. Otherwise, I have no incentive to do that. So we have to get the face in a better position first, the face in place, as Andrew Rice says. He says another instructor, famous instructor out there. But yeah, that's what we have to do first. So that's step number one. That's where we're hitting the big hooks. Step number two, now that we know how to get the face closed, now we can work on shallowing out the club. Because in step one, we're just trying to get the face closed. I don't care where it starts. It just has to curve from right to left for a right-hander, opposite for a left-hander. So it just has to be drawing or hooking. That is step number one. It doesn't matter what direction, that is what has to be happening. That's telling us that the face is closed enough, right? Then we get the club shallowing out. And now we're incentivized to do that because the face is closed. And now we have to get the ball to start to the right and draw to the left. It can't start left and draw left. It has to start to the right and draw left. That's step number two, right? And then step number three is just toning that down to find a nice stock shot pattern, right? So we want to really overdo it. We want to get the ball starting as far to the right and hooking back as much as we can. And then we just tone it down. Very, very simple from there. All right. So that's what I'd recommend doing. If you want to check out the 20-minute shallowing fix course, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute shallowing fix course, and that will help you to start getting rid of those pulls, right? If you're pulling the ball, really, you're pretty close to already getting the face closed enough, right? Because if you're pulling the ball, in what I would call a pull would be a shot that starts to the left for a right-handed golfer and then just goes straight left without much curvature to it at all, right? Now, your pull, some people I get sometimes say that they're pulling the ball and they're really just, pull drawing it, which if you're pull drawing it, that's even better. That means that you're already getting the face closed, and that drill number one is going to be very easy for you. You'll just blast right through it, and then you'll be able to go to drill number two. But if you're pulling it, you're pretty close to getting the club face closed. So You might have a little bit of difficulty with that drill number one, but it's going to be a lot easier for you than someone who is slicing it, right? Someone who's hitting a big pull slice or a push slice or something like that. So I highly recommend working through that 20-minute shallow fix course to get those scores down even lower and more consistently. All right, let's keep going. So Bobby says, your recent video on alignment hit home with me. I'm having great difficulty with keeping all body parts, especially hips, slightly aimed right on the range with alignment sticks. I smash it if fully aligned right. What do you do to align it setup? Aim and use the club face purely shoulders. So what I would try to do is just get an idea for where your body is in space in relationship to the target, right? So the way I kind of line myself, if I'm trying to hit a draw, right, and I want my my body to kind of be aimed to the right a little bit, what I'll do is I'll get behind the ball and I'll kind of line myself up to the right of the target, right? If I'm seeing the ball kind of drawing, let's say 5 yards, I'm going to pick a target that's to the right of my target or to the right of the flag or whatever I'm trying to hit to, right? I'm going to pick that straight on with my ball, and then I'm going to go in here and then get in my setup, right? And that's going to allow me to get my body aligned to the right very easily, right? And I'm going to get my body kind of aligned with right of the target. That's really the easiest way to do it. And that just comes with practice. The more you practice this on the range, and I would pick different targets, right? So practice getting lined up with different targets. Another good way to make sure that you're kind of getting lined up properly is on the range, get yourself lined up with your target, then set up with your ball, then put an alignment stick on your toe line, and then see where that's pointing. Is it actually pointing where you feel like you're pointing? And then make adjustments from there. And then you can kind of train your body to get an awareness of your alignment. Train your body to get an awareness of your alignment through repetition. Okay. So Jeff H says, is it okay to address the ball with the handle in front of your left thigh, shaft leaning the same as contact position? Yeah, 100% fine. It doesn't matter so much where the handle is at address. It only really matters how you are at impact. So if setting up with the handle more forward makes it easier for you to get into a good impact position, then I'm good with that. Generally speaking, those who have stronger grips are going to tend to have the handle more forward because it's more comfortable for the wrist to be in that position, right? So if I have a stronger grip where my lead hand is more on top of the grip, my trail hand's more under, right? I'm going to be more comfortable having my hands forward like this, because if I were to put the shaft like that, I'm really going to have to it's just not comfortable for me. I can't really relax. I feel like I'm really tensing up my lead arm. Whereas if I just kind of relax here and I just have my hands kind of naturally be where they want to be with a stronger grip, well, then look where my hands end up. My hands end up pretty close in front of my trail thigh. If I have a weaker grip, right, where my thumbs are more on top, the back of my hands pretty much pointing toward the target, and the palm of my trail hand is pointing toward the target, right? When I go down to the address position, right, for me here, this just feels the most comfortable. Not as much shaft lean, right? The shaft's more straight up and down, and this just feels a lot more comfortable for me. If I were to put my hands in the same place as I did in the other one, I would feel like I'm really pushing my hands forward and I'm adding tension in my wrist. So it's all about kind of how the orientation of your wrist is. If your wrist is more like this, you're going to feel more comfortable with it right here. If your wrist is more like this, a weaker grip, you're going to feel more comfortable with it straight down in front of you, generally. That's just basically what I've observed, between those grips. But yeah, even if you have a weaker grip, it's okay to have it in front as long as it helps you to hit better shots. That's really the end goal, right? Is to hit good shots. If it's not helping you to hit better shots, then don't do it. It's really that simple, right? All right. So Jim M says, hi, Q. Just share shanking to the right. Hold on. Just stare shanking to the right. Am I close to the ball? Thanks. It's possible. I believe you're saying that you started shanking the ball to the right and asking if you're too close to the ball. Certainly possible. If we get too close to the golf ball, we don't have as much space to be able to get the hands through, and that can definitely make you more likely to shank it. But there are players. Look at John Rahm. Look at Jim Furyk that stand on top of the golf ball and they don't really hit shanks. Although John Rahm, I have on 2 occasions I've seen him hit a shank in tournament play. But generally, there are lots of tour players that stand on top of the golf ball and don't really hit shanks. Maybe hit the occasional one like everybody else, but aren't hitting shanks all the time. Generally, when I see people hitting shanks, it's because they're moving their body too close to the golf ball throughout the swing, right? So basically, their hips kind of move out toward the golf ball in the backswing, or they even move out toward the golf ball in the downswing. And now you're just taking away space for your hands to work through, and you're kind of working the hosel of the club out toward the ball. So I would try to feel like you're more in balance throughout your swing, right? I maybe even feel like you're more in your heels, right? And you're staying in your balance and your hips aren't moving toward the golf ball. I'd actually feel like your hips move away from the golf ball in the backswing, away from the golf ball in the start of the downswing, and then through the ball, they actually move toward the target, right? That's what I would try to feel like, because odds are your hips are moving toward the golf ball and that's taking away the space. So that would be something I would look at. Another thing that seems to cause shanks is an overly open face when we're coming down, right? So if you're coming down, this face is very open. Well, if I keep that face open, I'm basically leading with a hosel. Or the other option is I throw the club out. Well, if I throw the club out to get the club face closed, that's also going to get that hosel in there, right? So if your face is very open, then that could be an issue. The 20-minute shallowing fix would be a good place to go to get the club face more closed. Remember, that's drill number 1, getting the club face more closed. So I would check out our 20-minute shallowing fix if that is the case. That's instruction tab, 20-minute shallowing fix, and then get to work on those drills. The other case would be over shallowing out the club. If we get the club working too much from the inside, right, and if we don't rotate and we tend to kind of thrust our body forward, right, well, that brings the hosel out toward the club, because the sweet spot of the club's working away from me too much, and that can bring the hosel into play. So those are kind of the main things. Over shallowing, or the main thing I see is just the body moving toward the golf ball. The other thing would just be the face being very open and either keeping it open, leading with the hosel, and or throwing the club out, which throws the hosel out closer to the golf ball, right? And then the other thing would be just shallowing the club too much and then kind of thrusting the hips, and that brings the hosel into play. So look at your swing and see, what's going on there. I will say, no matter what one of those things is going on, the first thing that I would do if you ever start shanking the ball is just to try to hit the ball off the toe. That's the first thing you should do, because you're trying to hit the ball in the center of the face, but the reality is that you're hitting it here. So if you change your intent to hitting it here, it will more than likely move it here, because even the ones that you aren't shanking are probably off the heel. They're probably pretty close to shanks, right? So adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. Start hitting the ball trying to hit the ball off the toe. If it's still in the heel or shanking, then exaggerate it more, right? That's what I would try to do. Just try to exaggerate hitting in the toe more. And if you actually start hitting the ball in the toe, because a lot of people are hesitant to do this because they feel like, well, I don't want to try to hit the ball off the toe. That's not any fun. I don't want to do that forever. Well, the good part is that that's not what's going to happen. You're going to adapt eventually, and you're actually going to start hitting the ball off the toe. And at that point, you can start trying to hit the ball off the center of the face again. But this is because we're human. We're adaptable, right? If we were machines, robots, that don't really get real off and just occasionally need calibrated, sure, you probably would have to do that for a long time. But we're human. You're going to adapt. Tomorrow morning, you may feel completely different and something else may be happening, right? So those are all things to think about. All right, let's keep going. So Andrew K says, I use my 60-degree lob wedge out of the sand and don't carry a sand wedge in my bag. Would I likely be better success by carrying a sand wedge? I'm 11 handicap with a 95-mile-per-hour driver swing. Not necessarily. I mean, a lob wedge is just a sand wedge with more loft on it. Is really all it is. And the way that we're naming these clubs, right? That's why we name clubs different things. I would call, anything that's like a 58 or a 60 and more loft, I would call that a lob wedge, right? That's what I would call it. Generally, I just call it the degree of the club, like a 58 or a 60 or whatever, like you did. And then anything that's, 58 to, 54, 53, something like that, I would maybe call a sand wedge, right? And then anything that's, like a 52 to a 48, I might call that a gap wedge or an approach wedge, something like that, tack wedge. Sometimes people call it that. And then the next one down would be a pitching wedge, right? 47, 46, maybe even 45. That would be like your pitching wedge, right? So they're really, it's just, I don't know what you carry in your bag as far as lofted clubs. If you have room in your bag, generally when you look at a tour player setup, they're going to be carrying 4 wedges, right? They're going to be carrying a high lofted wedge that'd be like a 60 degree. They're going to carry something in the 56 degree range. They're going to have something that's around the 52, 50 degree range, and then they're going to have a pitching wedge, right? If you have room in your bag for one of those, or if you're playing in competition and you need to carry 14 clubs at most, right? Now, if you're just playing for fun, carry as many clubs as you want. Who cares? If you're just playing for fun, there's not like competition or anything like that. You don't have to adhere by the USGA or RNA rules, right? Then carry as many clubs as you want. Get a pitching wedge or get a 56 degree wedge if you want. But if you're playing in leagues, you're playing in tournaments, you're playing in things where, hey, we got to play by USGA rules, I would probably recommend just carrying 14 clubs. But you have to look at, if you have 14 clubs already and you don't have a sand wedge, then you got to take something out, right? What's going to help you to shoot lower scores? A wedge, having another wedge in there, or having maybe an extra hybrid or fairway wood or something like that. That's what you kind of have to look at. Me personally, I'm going to be much better off having those 4 wedges in my bag as opposed to having a 2-iron or something in my bag, right? If I'm wanting to put a 2-iron in my bag, I probably just take out my hybrid, right? So because I'm probably going to, those are probably going to be interchangeable. So that's something you have to think about. Now, if you're asking me, would a sand wedge help you to get out of the sand better than a 56 degree? All things equal, no, definitely not green side bunker shots. Now, if you have a longer bunker shot where you need a little bit less loft, because you're only going to be able to hit that 60 degree so far, right? So if you're getting a lot of longer bunker shots, you may, depending, say you're 95 miles per hour, so you're probably only really able to hit about a 20-yard bunker shot, 25 maybe with a 60 degree wedge. If you're having a lot of bunker shots that are longer than that, then you may want to think about getting a wedge, right? A lower lofted wedge, right? So it really just depends on your game and so on and so forth. But, assuming all things equal, it's the same amount of bounce. If you have a 60 degree that doesn't have much bounce on it, it doesn't really work well out of the sand, then I would consider getting a better wedge that's better in the sand, right? It's another 60 degree, but one with maybe more bounce or something like that. All right, let's keep going. So David S says, I have a tendency to address the ball with my shoulders open to the desired line, even though they feel straight. Is there a pre-shot routine that will help me get square to the target line? So if your shoulders are open, then that means that your spine tilt, you don't have enough spine tilt, right? So as we talk about in the top speed golf system, we want to have some spine angle away from the target, right? And part of this is getting everything nice and squared up, getting our toes, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, everything nice and squared up. Because our trail hand, right, is lower on the club. So if I set up straight up and down, and I put my trail hand on the club, I have to reach, right? I have to reach to get my trail hand on the club, and now my shoulders are open. Whereas if I get some tilt, right, and now my trail hand can be on the club because now my arm is longer because I've got my right shoulder lower, right? And now I can have my shoulders and everything nice and square. So really that's what it comes down to is I would just get get some more spine tilt at address. So that way you can get your trail hand on the club without having to reach for it. And that will open your shoulders if you do that. All right, so let's keep going. So Jim P says, what do you think of the Voice Caddy 300i launch monitor other than you have to hit a ball to get the readings? I don't think I've used that one, but again, the 200 I liked. The SC200 was good, but they stopped making it, which is why we had to find another one that was good. Now the 300, I don't know much. I know they've raised. I know that one's probably like $400 or $500. So again, even if it's just as accurate as the PRGR, you're paying double for it. So I would just rather have the PRGR. Also, it's smaller. I think the 300 is like huge. Right? It's pretty big. So I'd rather have something that's smaller, fits in my pocket, fits in my bag very easily. I can just set it out, turn it on, and be going right away. I don't know much about much else about the 300. I haven't tested it, so I can't talk about the accuracy of it and so on. But it wouldn't fit. If I'm just comparing, okay, would I rather spend? I think those are like $400 or $500. Would I rather spend $400 or $500 or $200 some and get the same thing mainly? Now I think they do give you a couple extra parameters, but honestly, you just don't need those. I don't need something to tell me what my launch angle is. I can see how high or low it's launching. Like I don't need something to tell me that. I can't see how fast I'm swinging. I need something to tell me that, right? So that's why I'd be there with that. And the spin, a lot of these, I think the Voice Caddy might tell you the spin rate. Most of the time, you're going to be hitting range balls. The spin rate on those, it's trash data anyway. Your spin rate with a range ball, I wouldn't even pay attention to it because it's not gonna, it's not really what's going to happen with a normal good golf ball, right? And also, from what I've seen, they're not very accurate with the spin data either. So it's not even something I really care about. And again, that's something if I'm spinning my drives too much, I'm going to see the ball balloon up in the air. It's pretty easy to tell if you're spinning it too much. If you want to know if you're spinning it too much, go to a range where the wind's in your face. It will tell you right away. If you see your ball ballooning, you are spinning it too much, right? With your driver, that is. Now, obviously, with a wedge, you're not going to be able to keep it from ballooning just because there's going to be so much spin on it. But with your driver, you should be able to keep it from ballooning some. So if you hit your driver and it just balloons way up in the air, you know that it's spinning too much. So it's cool to have all these things, to have all this data points. But honestly, how does it really help you, right? What is the spin? What is the spin going to tell you? You can see if it's spinning too much. You can see if it's launching too high. I can see that. I can't see club head speed. I can't see ball speed. So I need something to tell me that. And that's what the PRGR does. All right, let's keep going. So Jeff says, I am inconsistent in the sand. When trying to get distance, I either pick the ball clean and airmail the green or dig in and come up way short. Is there something I should focus on? Yeah, you need to come in more shallow with the sand because it sounds like you are hitting down on the sand a lot. So when you do that, you have to be very precise with where you're hitting the sand. Because if you hit too close to the ball, which sounds like you've done, right, you're going to skull it out. If you hit behind the ball too much, you're going to chunk it, right? So we need to come in and just have this club kind of glide through the sand. So get your body really low, right? Get a little bit more squat. Try to get that club face kind of pancaked. Get it kind of pointing up to the sky, and really imagine like you're coming in and you're just taking that sand out, coming in really, really shallow, taking that top layer of sand out of there to allow the club to glide through the sand. Right? Open that face, get the knees low, and then feel like you're coming in and taking that top layer of sand off. It sounds like to me like you're getting into the sand too much, and that's making it difficult. All right, lots of questions today. Awesome to see. All right, so Gene says, for driver with forward ball position and on a tee, should I close my stance to account for that? I saw They post on IG to close lower body but keep the shoulders square. Why should I close lower body but keep body square? I don't know. I would ask the person who made that video, but you don't have to. I would say if you're struggling with shallowing out the club, you're struggling with swinging this club from the inside. You can drop this foot back a little bit and make that a little bit easier, right? And that works for shots off the tee because we can hit up on it. Now, the only thing I would say if you're trying to keep the upper body square, but the body would be to keep from shallowing it too much. But that would really be the reason why I would drop the foot back is to help you to shallow it, right? So yeah, I haven't seen the video, so I'm not sure exactly why they're telling you to do that. But dropping the trail foot back would be something I would recommend doing if you're struggling to shallow out the club, because it can make it easier for you to do that. But I wouldn't try to be too worried about how your body is aligning up. I would just get to where if you're struggling with swinging over the top and coming down steep, then I would close your shoulders off more. If you're shallowing out the club, great, or over shallowing it, then I maybe feel like your shoulders are more open, right? Because that definitely, if my shoulders are more open, then the club's going to come more out here. The shoulders are more closed, and my club's going to come more here, right? So it really just depends on how you're bringing the club down, how you want to feel with your shoulders. So Gene says, as a follow-up to previous question for driver, if handle too far forward, pointing in front of the left hip, could that be okay? What if hitting lots of hooks? So again, at address, it's not that important where your hands are. It just isn't. You put your hands, let me rephrase that. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. Now, it may be important for you. Like for you, if you put your hands way forward, you may hit hooks. You put them more back, you may not hit hooks, right? And if that's the case, I put your hands in a place where they don't make you hit hooks, right? If you believe that that's the cause of your hooks, put your hands in a place that allow you to hit the best shots. It's not going to be the same for everybody, though. I wish I could tell everybody, hey, your hands have to be at a certain angle here and all that, but it's just not the case. If you look on PGA Tour, you're going to see people with their driver like this. You're going to see people with the driver like this, and everything in between, right? You're not going to see the same thing on every single person, right? So it's not a matter of I have to have my hands forward, I have my hands back. It's a matter of you have to figure out. So if there's ever a situation like that, it's very, very easy to figure out. I would just hit shots and go from both ends of the extreme, go from one end of the extreme to the other. So hit a few shots where your hands are way forward like this. See what it does to your ball flight. Put them a little less forward. Hit a few shots. See what it does to your ball flight. And then hit a few shots going incrementally until your hands are way over here. Hit a few shots from there and see what it does to your ball flight. Somewhere in between there, you're going to find where you are going to be the best off, right? Now, that may be, you may do this drill and have your buddy do it with you, and you may find that he may find that his hands more forward are a lot better, and your hands less forward are a lot better, because everybody's different. Nobody's going to be the same. All right, let's keep going. So Dan S. says, sometimes not that much. I will almost miss the ball and have it go off the toe, usually with my wedge on a less than 50-yard hit. What's the most common cause of this? Of a toe shank? Maybe coming down steeply with an open face. That'd probably be the most common thing, right? So if I'm coming down really steep and my face is open, then a couple things are happening, right? If my face is very open, then I'm effectively making the face smaller, right? If the face is coming at you like this, square, right? I'm using the full scope of the face. So if I'm going to go extreme with this, but imagine the face is like this. Now look from this angle. Look how small that club face is. It's only that wide, right? So your odds of hitting on the toe are much higher, all right? And then also, if I'm swinging steeply, meaning my club is working to the left quite a bit, right? Then that sweet spot is working toward me, which means I'm going to tend to hit it more on the toe, right? So I would say that's the most common cause, is an open face, steep swing is the most likely thing. So I just look at your swing on video, and I just make sure, I just try to feel like this club is much more from the inside, if that's the case, right? And there's no reason to really open up the face. You know, for a little 50-yard shot, That's only a swing that's going to be about this big, right? So we don't need to like way open up the face. Just keep that face pretty square here. And we don't need to open it way up. Just keep it pretty square and keep it inside your hands and just turn your body back and through. And you'll be a lot more consistent doing that. Not only with your distance control, but also with your ground contact, with your contact on the face. All those things are going to get a lot better if you do that. All right, so next question here is from JP. Says, Q, I feel a lot of momentum and pull of the driver head to swing or push outward in the downswing. Maybe a little over the top is what I feel. I push the ball right at times. I know you have drills to over-exaggerate the inside out swing. Any you can share that help with pushes? Well, if you're pushing it just means the face is too closed. Or excuse me, the face isn't closed enough. So if we want the ball to turn over, then it depends on how much you're pushing it too. If you're pushing it way out to the right, then that means then what's happening is that your path is too much into out, and then your face is in line with that path, right? So if that's the case, I would try to feel like you're coming over the top a little bit. That's what I would try to feel like. I'd feel like you're here and you're rotating your body open, not just try to feel like you're pulling the ball, right? If that's what's happening. Now, that's if you're hitting it solid. Now, that you could also be hitting a push because you're hitting it way off the toe. So when we hit the ball way off the toe, so if you're feeling the club twist in your hand a lot and it's just a really weak push out to the right, then most likely you're hitting the ball off the toe. I would get some video, use slow motion video. You can usually see very, very easily that the ball's off the toe. And you'll see the face twisting open and the ball going off to the right. Because that's what happens. When we hit it extremely off the toe, the face will twist, right? It will twist open and the ball will start off to the right, right? So that can cause a push as well. So if it's a solid shot and it's too much of a push, then we need to feel more rotation. We need to feel like we're pulling the ball, right? If it's too much push and it's a weak shot, then that's most likely a toe strike. If that's the case, just try to hit the ball off the heel. Very simple. Just change your intent to hitting the ball off the heel, and that should get things in better order. Now, if it's a slight push, meaning you're just pushing it slightly out to the right, then all we have to do is get the club face a little bit more closed to get the ball to start less to the right, but then also turn over and go to the left. The easiest way to do that is just to strengthen the grip, right? Instead of having your thumbs more on top of the grip like this, I would get your hands more like this on the grip. Left hand more on top, trail hand more underneath. That's a stronger grip. That's going to get that face more closed. If you get the ball hooking, just ease off of that a little bit and find that happy medium of grip strength to get you what you want with the club face. All right, let's keep going. So Jim S says, on PRGR, when the ball speed matches club head speed, is that just a bad reading, or is it telling me something I should know about the shot? That's just a bad reading. It got confused. Sometimes that happens with those. And this is with, I've heard people say a PRGR is inaccurate, blah, blah. It's not. Every single one of these devices out there have misreadings. Even the $25,000 TrackMans have misreadings. There's just no way around it. Things are moving really fast. And if it doesn't catch it quite right, sometimes there will be a misreading, right? So understand that will happen sometimes. But yeah, all it means is that and usually it's the ball speed that it's reading twice. The ball speed's the easier one to read because it's a smaller object and it's moving faster. So it's easier for the radar to read that. So usually if you get that, it's the ball speed, right? If you're seeing that your club head speed and your ball speed are like 140 and 141 miles per hour, right? That's your ball speed. It didn't get your club head speed on that one, right? And you got to keep in mind, when it's seeing the tee, the tee's flying through. Maybe you maybe caught a little bit of ground and the ground's flying through. There's a lot of things going on there. It's trying to latch on to something to read the club head speed or to read the speed of it. So yeah, usually if it's the same. Now there are going to be. Now I'm assuming you're talking about the driver, right? When you hit a wedge, a lot of times the club head speed and the ball speed are going to be pretty equal, right? Now if you're hitting like little pitch shots, little spinny pitch shots, a lot of times the ball speed will be less than the club head speed, right? And you'll get a smash factor that's less than 1. So for those of you who aren't familiar, smash factor, that's your ratio of your club head speed to your ball speed. Excuse me, other way around, ball speed to club head speed. So let's say you swing your driver 100 miles per hour, and then your ball speed is 150 miles per hour with your driver, right? That would be a smash factor of 150 divided by 100 of 1.5, right? And that's ideal for the driver. If you're getting a 1.5 smash factor, that's very, very good. The average on tour is like 1.48. So you get 1.5 on smash factor on a driver, you're hitting it about as solidly as you can. Now, with keep in mind, with range balls, a lot of times you won't get that 1.5 no matter how solid you hit it because they're junky range balls. I know at our driving range here, the best you can usually get is like 142, 143 a lot of times. So keep that in mind. But, if you got a fresh Pro V out of, or a fresh good golf ball, you're going to be able to get 1.5 ideally. If you're not, then you're just not hitting it as solid. You're probably not hitting it in the center of the face, or maybe you're cutting across it, chopping down on it, that sort of thing. We want to have the feeling that we're driving the hammer or driving the nail into the piece of the wood with the hammer, right? If I was doing that, I want to do that as efficiently as possible. I would drive that nail straight down in there. I wouldn't cut across it, at it from angles or anything like that. I wouldn't use my club face like this. I would try to square up my club face and go straight down into it, right? So it's the same thing we want to do with the driver. If we want to get as much ball speed as possible, we don't want to cut across it. We want to match that up as well as we can to get that ball speed up there. All right, JP says, thank you, Q. No problem, JP. Richard R says, thanks, Q. I've really enjoyed the live session. I'm excited to get started. Awesome. Great to hear. No problem, Richard. All right, great session today. Lots of good questions and lots of questions, too. That's the only thing I ask from everybody is to come in here and ask questions. Sometimes we get in here and it's kind of boring because nobody's asking anything. So don't be afraid to come in here and ask questions. That's what I'm here for. And, tomorrow we'll be back here. 11 a.m. tomorrow is when we'll be here. So bring your questions then. Hopefully everybody has a great Thursday evening. I know I'm going to enjoy it. Tonight is the start of the football season, so I'm excited for that. Going to watch football and start the NFL season anyway. The college started this past weekend or whatever. But anyway, everybody have a great rest of your evening, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow.